Hey there, magical experimenters. It looks like I'm live. So here I am, and I thought I would do a video on reclaiming my identity part three. This has been a really rough week for me, actually. Well, first things first, if you guys are watching and you're not subscribed, go ahead and click the subscribe button and then click the notification bell. And then feel free to like the video if you're familiar with my content or comment on it. Anyway, yeah, it's been a rough week. I got my walking papers yesterday, I guess you could say, my divorce paperwork. And it's funny because it's coming on the week of my actual wedding anniversary. At least the family wedding anniversary when we got married on the 1st of January, but then we also did like June 26th as the family. So for me, it's kind of a poignant thing. Um, And earlier this week, I told my ex-wife that she could keep the one cat, Ember, that I was going to potentially get because I realized that, like with my situation, I really don't know when it's going to fully stabilize. It may take a while, even with having some things starting to come together. I'm also really just cognizant of the fact that this is a process that takes time. When you go from you get divorced and you go from having everything and then all of a sudden you really have nothing, next to nothing in some ways, and you start your life all over again. It's a process. I'm 2.5 months into this process, and it's a very intimidating process. I think partially because too, I'm dealing with the waves of grief around this. you know Part of reclaiming my identity is actually grieving and letting go of the grief that I'm feeling. Through that grief, I think a lot of times people are in such a rush to move on from an experience that they don't always give themselves that time. But and for me, admittedly, the first month especially was more of a month of being in shock over everything and having to make some fast decisions. And then the second month was kind of continued along those courses, but things started to stabilize. And then this month, or halfway into this month, things are a bit more stabilized, and I'm having more time. And of course, I've also been dealing with the fact that I've had little things come up, like it was her birthday last week, and then this week it's emailing her about the cat, and then getting the divorce paperwork, and then, oh yeah, the wedding anniversary is this coming Saturday. It's just been a rough month. um i'm 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 honestly looking forward to getting past Saturday and hoping that things will get a little bit easier after that. I think, in your first year of when you've divorced somebody or broken up with somebody, that the first year is probably the hardest because you have those firsts of, I'm not with this person anymore, and this was a day that was significant. And you can do stuff around that to release it and everything else, but at the same time, I think you also have to give yourself space to actually feel the grief. And that's really what I've been dealing with this week, is I've just been feeling more of the grief. It's really been hitting me like, okay, well, you you left a significant person in your life, and you had good reasons for doing it, but it doesn't make it any less painful. It doesn't change the fact that it happened, um, or that it hurts. So I think that when you start to really feel that grief, you have to give yourself time to feel it and to allow yourself to fully be present with it. And for me, I think this month is hitting harder because I've had a bit further time out. And so, like, now the grief is really settling in and I'm feeling it more, and I'm having to really hold space with that. And yet at the same time, this is part of that reclaiming of identity that I was talking about, because you can't reclaim your identity until you're able to let go of what was. And part of letting go of what was is grieving and being sad and having those moments of recognizing, well, this is what I lost. And so my advice in that kind of situation, and it's the advice I'm applying to myself, is to slow things down. You know, don't make decisions when you're in a place of grief. Don't push yourself into doing something that you're not ready to do. But at the same time, don't automatically I don't know, don't automatically just go and make rash decisions. And as somebody who's unfortunately made some impulsive choices in my life, I can tell you that those always come with a cost. Usually come with a cost, not always, but sometimes, a lot of the time. So for myself, I'm really just trying to hold space with this grief and not make any hasty decisions. And I'm slowing some things down very purposely because I realize if I don't, I'm setting myself up for failure. It's really easy to set yourself up for failure when you're impulsive because you rush ahead like a bull in a china shop, and that's been my mo a lot of the time. One of the things that I'm doing, and I'm going to be writing a blog article about this, is I've started doing tarot readings when I'm about to make a decision. I start doing a tarot reading as a way to get a different perspective on it. So I'm not just making the decision, or that I'm really weighing out what the decision is and why I want to make it. Another thing I'm really doing is I'm acknowledging, okay, I'm feeling this way right now, but can I give myself another week or 2 weeks and see how I'm feeling down the line? Will I still be feeling this way? I'm doing that in relationship to just a couple things right now where I'm feeling really uncomfortable, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to really do this thing that I'm doing, and I'm like, no, I need to slow down. I need to not make a hasty decision. I've worked my butt off to get to where I'm at right now. The last thing I need to do is set myself back a step or two because I'm in this place of grief. But at the same time, I'm also recognizing I can also give myself that permission to make changes. A lot of times people can't give themselves that permission. They feel like they're locked into a situation, and I think it's important to recognize when you need to step back and say, no, I'm not locked into this situation. No, I can make a different choice. And I might need to for my own mental health and sanity and for my own physical well-being and everything else. I mean, that's kind of one of the decisions I ended up making in April when I decided to get divorced. I was like, okay, I have to choose. I have to choose, make a choice here. And, and, and I had fortunately had I had had some time to think about that choice. I'd had a lot of time to think about that choice, really. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, I just have to make this choice because I can't continue to be in this space where I'm feeling like I'm not feeling good about myself. And I'm not liking how this is going. And this is proving to be more painful. And it's funny though, you make a choice like getting a divorce, and you're making it in one sense to get away from pain or whatever, and then you end up still being in pain. Like you don't really get away from it. It's just that how you experience it and deal with it is different. And that's really what I'm dealing with this week. Getting the paperwork yesterday, it was like a kick in the gut. It's like, well, okay, now your marriage is done. And I know I have things I have to do with that paperwork, but I'm not really doing any of them right now because I'm kind of like, I'll get to it. But I'm like giving myself some time to just process that grief. And I'm not in a rush around it because I know that those things that I need to do will take some time. So when and this is something I'm going to write about more in the inner alchemy of wintering, but like when you're going through a tough time and you're wintering, you have to give yourself that space to grieve and just be with that grief. You have to learn how to sorrow effectively. And again, most people, their impulse is to get away from sorrow. But I mean, like if I were, for example, to get into another relationship right now, I wouldn't be doing myself or that other person any favor. I would just be carrying over. I'd just be carrying over the grief and baggage from the one relationship to the other without really unpacking it and figuring out what I can get rid of before packing it back up again. And that's really what I'm in the process of doing right now, is trying to unpack my grief. I'm grieving the end of my marriage. It's already gone, but I'm grieving it, and I'm grieving this person that I still love and I didn't want to get divorced from, but that things just had to go that way. And I have to give myself that space to do it, because if I don't, all I'm doing is setting myself up for failure. That's what happened before. I bounced out of one marriage and got into a relationship with, well, my second ex-wife. And I don't think I gave myself the time to fully process or unpack the grief I was feeling around the first marriage. And it was, I don't know that I did myself or my second ex-wife any favors by doing that. But I mean, it is what it is. So this time around, I'm really trying to take my time, because I can't rush, things. And that's one of the reasons why I'm taking my time in terms of even just rebuilding my life. I realized recently, like, I'm in a rush around some things, and I need to just slow down and maybe not even do certain things. That's a hard decision to make, but I need to give myself space and time to just be where I'm at. I need to assimilate each choice that I'm making very carefully and make sure I'm fully showing up for each choice, because if I'm in a rush, I'm going to put myself into a situation I might regret. And part of it too is that I'm really just trying to figure out, what do I want with the rest of my life? Reclaiming my identity is really about reclaiming me, and like, what do I want? This is the first time I'm getting a chance to get to know myself. Really get to know myself. Which is kind of ironic, because at age 44, you would think you'd know yourself, but I think, no matter how old you are, and you could be I'm sure if I'm alive 40 years from now, I'll probably, if I happen to even remember, I might reflect on this video and say, yeah, at 84, I don't know who I am fully. I know myself in some ways, but in some ways, I'm still a work in progress. I don't know if you ever really get to fully know yourself, but we'll see. To my future self, 44 years from now, or 40 years from now, if I'm still around, we can talk about that. But I mean, that's the thing, is I have to get to know myself better. And, I think that that's like a huge part of reclaiming your identity as a person, as a magician, as whatever else, is that you have to get to know who you are and figure out what you really want. Do you want this thing, or do you want something else, or do you want other things? Like, what do you really want? And that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure that out, and I'm taking my time with it, because I've been in a rush so often in my life. And I know I want to be a writer, and I am a writer. I know I want to create art and practice magic and all that stuff. Those are things I know. Those are solid. But like, where do I want to live? What kind of relationships do I want? Other things like that. All that is just stuff I have to take my time with, not be in a rush. So that's what I'm trying to do. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching, and take care, and have a great day.